Impact of the New Economies by Alyssa, Caitlin, and Daisy. The First Nations people had been struggling to adapt since the Europeans first began their ascent into colonialism and eventually capitalism. In many ways, the traditional lives of the First Nations have been greatly influenced by the colonists, both negatively and positively, in such aspects as diet, beliefs, culture, socially, and economically. First of all, the boom in capitalism forced First Nations to become wage laborers since they couldn't acquire water or land rights, and loans for more expensive items that could help them break free and become independent, example, boats. These were unattainable since a status Indian couldn't take out money because technically they were children in the eyes of the Euro-Canadian legal system. During the fur trade, they were more or less treated equally, but as the economy evolved, so did the colonists' control over the First Nations, especially after there were less of them due to the smallpox epidemics and other diseases brought along by the Europeans. First Nations were forced to change many things in their life to survive in the constantly changing New World. Many First Nations moved closer to areas where the seasonal labor jobs could occur, example salmon canneries, which replaced their previous family food preservation business unit, or working on hop farms and fruit and veggie farms to harvest produce. Roles in gender were modeled after Europeans' methods, so women were left to do domestic jobs, stay in the house, take care of kids, while men became carpenters, farmers, miners, and salmon canners. Since jobs were so laborious, First Nations people didn't have time for the old way of getting food with family, and therefore brought into the European consumer custom of spending most of their money on groceries that were pre-packaged or made, which drastically changed their diet and caused families to split up. If they moved to urban centers, often they were shunned from returning home to the reserves by the ones who stayed and hold their traditional values. Forcing them into jobs as wage laborers assimilated them better than any previous attempts. Example, residential schools, taking away potlatch, making them status Indian on the reserves, because it divided and conquered by separating family members with a cause, rouse of opportunity eventually and otherwise.